do this.
Can you guys see, by the way, I have split screens, so I have like a monitor. Are you seeing just like the full
We
PowerPoint and not the notes underneath?
we see the slide deck. Yep.
Perfect. Okay. Just
All
making
right,
sure.
so you should be host now. Take host.
Okay. Okay. Hold on.
You good?
Yeah, am I officially the
It
host?
says your host. Yeah. So,
Okay.
all right, this is Kirstin Fleming. She is a phenomenal teacher. She's been a member of our ALC. Was it 2023 for you?
It was a 2024. It's
Was it
hard to believe.
2024?
It
I'm
was
sorry.
last
Yeah,
year.
everything's moving so quickly.
I know, goes
Member of
by
the
fast.
ALC last year, so you would have seen her. You would have seen her face on the screen last night as we thanked everybody from 2024. She's a phenomenal teacher. She did a great time last time. Everybody raved about it,
Thank
and
you.
some of that is in her DNA because she's also a great coach. Out of the industry and in between the white lines, you coach women's lacrosse, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Correct. Yeah. So
Correct.
you guys are in great hands. Kirsten, you got some wonderful people who shook off the dust from
Excellent.
last night and decided to join you today. So
Love it.
awesome. Yes, awesome. Hey, do me a favor for the two of you, Ryan and Deanna. In the notes on today's class, put don't forget, Timmy, last night was the party, and I'll double your points. Okay?
All right,
Nice.
Yes,
writing it
yes. We're
right
doubling
now.
down on points because you guys are rock stars for being here.
That's
Have a
awesome.
great morning, everybody. I'll see you soon. Take care.
Thanks, Tim. All right, guys. You can see everything okay? See the
Yes, I
screen?
can.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
So I just switched it. You can see that?
Yep.
Okay. It's, I'm gonna just say this because the first time around, I wasn't sure how it worked, but I have notes underneath the slide deck, but obviously when the screen is full, like when the presentation has started, I can't see them. So I have to have two screens so I can see my notes. Anyway, okay. So thank you for coming on this morning. We were a little nervous that no one was going to be here and I might be talking to myself. This is session 11, following up with leads. So I'm not going to keep you here too long. We're going to go through everything, but I think the last few times I've done this Ignite course, it's really helpful. Please don't be shy to ask questions, or if you think of something that, even if it's not necessarily related to leads, um, we had a great time last time, kind of opened up this whole discussion about open houses. And, you know, as a newer agent, I just remember how many questions I had, and it's kind of fun to talk to different people about, you know, what their take on things is. So feel free to ask me anything, you know, and I'll try to point you in the right direction or give you my thoughts. Okay, so let's get started on this session 11 course overview. This is the follow-up with leads session. Okay, it says yesterday we discussed lead follow-up communication with the purpose of opening the door to two-way communication. And now we're talking about what happens after that. So what is happening when you get a response from a lead? You want to convert that lead into an appointment. You want to set that appointment from talking to the lead. After a lead generation, lead conversation and conversion is the most business critical activity that you need to master. And that is the truth. If you do not, you can have a million leads, but if you do not convert those leads, you're not going to have an easy time in real estate. If you don't have appointments, you won't have buyer seller agreements. Common sense. Without agreements, you cannot have any sales contracts. Okay. And then do you guys have this Ignite workbook?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So feel free if you want to pull that up. There's a couple of slides where, because we're not in person, it's going to be a little bit different. So don't worry too much about this. But if we were, I would be saying, hey, flip to page 23 and we're going to fill this worksheet out. We're not going to do that. You gladly can on your end, but I'm going to more talk about it. So we're not going to worry about physically filling anything out while we're on this call this morning. Okay.
Understood.
So that's the workbook QR code if you need. All right. Whoops. Okay. So today's agenda: learn lead conversation, how to convert a lead to an appointment, improving your conversion rate. Then we're going to kind of recap and talk about any questions you might have and what your daily success system looks like. To start thinking about what you will learn today, let's consider what questions you might have about lead conversion and what you'd like to know about lead conversion. So this is one of the workbook items. It says, tell participants to find a partner, have a 5-minute conversation about questions they'd like to learn more about. Is there anything before we start? And feel free, you don't have to share if you don't want to, or if you want to write in the chat, that's fine too. Is there anything that you guys off the bat have any questions on for lead conversion or setting appointments, or something that you'd like to talk more about today or learn more about? And if not, that's okay too. Ryan, anything?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a specific. It's a little hard. I'm very new to this,
Yeah,
so
totally
yeah.
fine.
If
think-
something comes up as we go, I'll definitely bring it up.
Okay, sounds like a plan. And this is, again, one of those things, great point. You're new. I kind of always use the phrase like, you don't know what you don't know. So once you start getting
Exactly.
into the mix of this and you're out in the open, or you're doing an open house, or you meet somebody, talking to family, friends, whatever, that's where you start doing things. And then you can take a step back and say, okay, how did I handle that? Or what should I do, etc. So we'll go through some stuff together. All right. Okay, the effort you give to converting leads must match the effort you give to generating them. And, generating versus converting, as I mentioned in the last few slides, if you're generating leads, that's great, but that's 50% of the game, right? You have to convert them or else you're not going to have any business. So not to put the pressure on, but it's something that as you go deeper into real estate, it becomes more natural, but it's really important to have some tools and tricks to go along and have a system of how you're going to be handling that. And it says here, why do you think both activities, generation and conversion, deserve the same amount of time spent? I mean, I'll answer that. It's a 50-50. The converting part obviously is what's going to get you the appointment, but you can't have you can't have one without the other, if that makes sense. So you have to spend the same amount of time on both. Let's go down to here. Okay, lead conversion process. So converting a lead to an appointment is a process that can happen very quickly, and that is the truth. And sometimes when you least expect it, although in some cases it can happen slowly, and that is also the case. We say in real estate, and Tim did not mention, but my husband Patrick is also a licensed agent. He was part-time, and then now the last year he's been full-time. So it's been interesting because I've been in it for almost 6 years, but he's a little bit newer. And I always say to him, sometimes it's the long game, which sounds it almost sounds a little devastating to say, but the conversations that you're having now could lead to something 2 years from now. And the time goes by so quickly. So don't count out things that are not moving quickly, right? You're going to add to your database and you're going to find a way to keep in touch with those people. So Shift tells us that consistently getting every possible appointment from the leads you generate isn't complicated, but it does require preparation, practice, and purposeful action, which is true. So this starts at the top of the model with capture. So you want to capture the correct information and enough information to contact the person, right? So we're talking definitely a name, first and last name. Ideally, you're going to need something to reach out to them, whether that's a phone number or an email address, or even maybe their home address. If you can get all three, that's amazing. Then you're going to move on to the connecting piece, building a connection, gaining that information, and building trust. Then you're going to end with closing for an appointment. So without the appointment, there's no conversion, right? So you're doing all these two things first, the capture and connection, in hopes to close and set that appointment. So when the conversion step does not result in an appointment, what do you guys think happens next, or what should happen next when you don't set an appointment?
Cultivate and follow up.
Yeah, exactly. Find a way. And there's many different ways, but that to me is not a loss. That is not a, okay, cross them off the list. Great. On to the next one. No. If you have someone's contact information and you've made some sort of connection, whether it's face to face, you know, a Facebook message, I don't care what it is, you now have had some sort of interaction with that person, do not count it out, even if it doesn't convert to an appointment right away. And I'll give you guys some examples as we go along, but one of my best, most recent ones is I had a seller lead that was really kind of hands off, meaning they just were like, I don't know, I might want to sell. And this was years ago, not a joke. Got them from an open house that we kept in touch. She's kind of prefers not to be poked or reached out to a lot, so I respect that. But I would just, from time to time, I would check in. And the other thing that I was doing, again, because I knew she wanted to sell her house eventually, I wanted to have that connection with her. I would be sending her probably every 2 months. I was doing every 60 days. I was sending her a market update for her home in Barrington. And all I was doing was just, hey, Amy, you know, checking in, hope all is well with you. And I just wanted to give you a little scoop on what has been happening in your neighborhood. And I would pull some information and say, you know, in the last 60 days, one home went on the market or one home closed, and this is what it closed for. I would send her the links. And honestly, she did not even respond to those emails. I could see that she was opening them because I have a little tracker. We use HubSpot, or you can use Streak for Gmail. That's another really good one. So it will tell you when someone opens an email and it tells you how many times they'll open it. So that was really helpful to me because even though she wasn't necessarily writing back, hey, Kirstin, thanks so much. This is great information. I could see that she was opening them and clearly reading them to some extent. So my point being is this was years ago. And then now at this point, she said, hey, you've kept in touch with me. I think I'm getting ready. Let's talk about putting the house on the market in the spring. So I could have easily just said, well, she's not ready, but I kind of went through this follow-up process. That's how I chose to follow up with this seller lead in particular. That's just what worked for this scenario. So anyway, that's my one example. Okay. So after lead generation, lead conversion is the most business critical activity that you must master. It's where the possible business that comes from lead generating activities can turn into probable business and then profitable business. So we've got 3 steps there. So converting the lead to an appointment has so much more importance because it is how you have a chance of earning income, which we're doing this job. We want to make money, obviously, very important so that we can live. Converting appointments to business is also key to economic success. And you'll learn more about converting the appointment to business starting on day 14 of Ignite. So that'll come a little bit later on. Until then, we're going to focus on the how now that you know why we have to do what we do. Okay. So breaking this down a little bit more, we talked about on that last slide deck. So capturing. At the simplest, capturing is collecting the minimum amount of valid information for a potential buyer or seller. This should include, I mentioned before, names, a way to get a hold of them, email, phone number. Most likely this will occur when you are lead generating. So my question to you are what are some methods of capturing? What are some methods of capturing? I feel like that's kind of an oddly phrased question. Yeah, well, let's put it this way. What are some ways, I know you're, Deanna, I'm not sure how long you've been in real estate, but Ryan, it sounds like you're pretty new in finding your footing.
2 months for me.
2 months. Okay, so you're also pretty new into it, which is exciting. Have either of you done anything, or have you been in a scenario where you're doing just this? Maybe you're talking to somebody and getting their information. Have you gotten to that point yet?
I've still been talking to people I already know.
Awesome. So Sphere, that's great. That's a great place to start. What about you, Ryan?
It's happened once or twice, actually, just yesterday was the
Oh,
first time
awesome.
where I was speaking to someone that I didn't know,
Yep.
and then they mentioned wanting to sell their house.
Oh my gosh.
And
Amazing.
I tried to do my best to kind of capture that information,
Mhm.
but it ended up with just giving them a business card.
Totally. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. And I would do the same exact thing. So, uh,
Yeah, I tried
um,
to ask them. I was like, "Oh, what's your number?" Yeah,
yeah,
I should have. Unfortunately, the way it worked is that they knew my name before I knew their name, and I made the mistake of not asking for their name,
yeah.
which is just foolish in retrospect.
You
And then I
know,
tried to get their contact information, but they seemed like a little iffy about that, so just gave them the card.
which again, I think you did great. I think there's nothing wrong with that. And in that scenario, as you think about it, we're talking about this now, and you're saying, hey, in retrospect, I should have done this. You're learning as you go along. Do not count that as a loss whatsoever. Um, I used to do the same exact thing. I actually, when I had first started, I was on a team when I first started real estate with Keller Williams, and I was doing a lot of, believe it or not, craft fairs because I make sea glass jewelry. Truth be told, I do not do that as much anymore because we've been a little bit busier. But I grew up in New York. Going to the beach is my favorite thing. So I would find sea glass, and then I was actually like drilling jewelry and making things. But I would do the Dover, New Hampshire craft fair. I would do a couple of craft fairs like around Christmas time. And I remember being so excited because I had all my real estate business cards out. And what a great place. People are buying your jewelry, but then they're looking at the card and saying, oh, you're in real estate? So I was like, okay, this is great. I can have these conversations. But what ended up happening was just that. I'm like, yeah, would love to chat more. Here's my business card. And they're like, oh, thanks so much. This is great. So, and what came of it? Unfortunately, nothing. So, the best advice from that, which again, the more you think about this, it's a little bit common sense. It's getting out of your comfort zone. I was so afraid to ask someone, hey, is it okay if I keep in touch with you? Do you mind giving me your phone number and I'll just save it in my phone, and I'd love to you know, touch base with you about the Dover market. And I'm always no pressure. I'm always, hey, I will not spam you. There's a lot of exciting things going on in this market, especially for first time home buyers, whatever the scenario is. So your scripting as you go along will get better. But it's a little awkward to ask someone, hey, what's your phone number? But I will say, and I think I bring her up every single Ignite class. So Kate Grassi, if you listen to this, she was at the awards last night. Amazing real estate agent, and she, I think, has found the best way. Maybe when you're a little bit newer, and you're looking for ways to kind of dive in, she started with a lot of same thing, craft fairs or community events, and she would do a raffle, and she would have a clipboard with name, email, phone number, home address, and it would be always transparent, but the conversation would be, hey, would you like to enter the raffle for this Amazon gift card or Christmas basket? Um, and if you agree to sign up, we'd love to keep in touch with you. We're a local real estate team. Amazing. And I know she's gotten leads from that. So you're having that face-to-face connection, but then they're literally writing their information down for you. So I just thought that was really creative and cool. And she gets business a lot of different ways. But I think that's kind of a shining example of she's not handing over her business card, which are beautiful and people are always happy to take, but she's saying, hey, let me keep in touch with you. So anyway, I digressed a little bit there. But
No, that's a great idea. And actually, my
yeah.
fiance and I do craft fairs.
Oh my gosh. So there you go. This is
Yeah,
great.
that's
And,
awesome.
and
I'm definitely gonna do that.
there's so many creative people out there, and the craft fair, I will say, when I was doing that circuit, it's hard. Well, it's great if you have another person with you because you guys can kind of tag team, or you could even walk around. My husband would stay at my table, and I would walk around and just introduce myself to people, hey, other crafters, I mean, because that's a really good way to kind of touch base as well. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you feel. And I'm not silly when I approach people. I'm talking about people that I don't know, obviously, that are strangers. But I always come from a place of hey, or I've been in restaurants before where I've heard people talking about real estate. We've converted multiple clients, literal signed clients, from people that I've overheard in a restaurant talking about real estate. I have no shame. I will go right over and say, hey, hope this wasn't odd. I heard you say the word real estate. I'm actually an agent. Are you guys looking for something in the area? What's the worst they could say? Go tell me to buzz off? Sure, maybe, and it was very like, hey, didn't mean to bother you. So there's all kinds of opportunities out in the wild. But Ryan, that's good to know with the craft fair. You should definitely try something like that. It's
Thank
great.
you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and Deanna too, talking to your sphere, like that's an awesome place to get started because it's the people, that and they love and care about you. So that's always good. All right, it really went sideways here. Okay. So in my slide deck here, it's talking a little bit about how you can have these conversations. We just kind of chatted. Open house, lead capture form. We'll get to that a little bit later. Social media, responding to, Facebook messages, mailers or flyers, or for sale signs. Let's click into the next thing. Okay, so this is another workbook page here. So capturing is collecting the minimum amount of valid information. I just said this. Names, way to get a hold of them, email and phone number. Okay, so this is kind of a follow-up. So we talked about this, how we're capturing leads. And I think kind of common sense wise, both of you are, when you're talking to someone maybe that you don't know, yeah, you're looking for their phone number or their email address. Getting a home address is going to be a little bit harder, and I wouldn't necessarily ask for that right off the bat, unless maybe it's a seller client, which they're a little bit harder to find, or potential seller client. Okay. So conversion. Okay, when you are capturing it, it's important to know what you are going to say before you start the conversation. So in the participant guide, there's some frameworks to ask for contact information, and here's some examples. If I were to need to contact you, what would that number be? Great kind of low pressure way to ask. I think that's good. If I found exactly what you were looking for, how would I contact you? So maybe if someone shared a little information, hey, I'm specifically looking for Dover because, or maybe even Durham, Lee, and Madbury because I'm moving to that area to teach at UNH, something like that. And you could say, hey, if I found something, what's the best way that I could contact you? Great way to ask. If I found out the information that you were wanting, how would I get it to you? Same thing. Most people might say, here's my email. For this first step of capture, have a system in place to capture leads and continue to cultivate that relationship. So again, you're having that conversation, you're doing a lot of hard work to have that conversation, maybe step outside of your comfort zone a little bit. And then how are you cultivating it? So, and here we use what's called a touch campaign. So it's a way to, keep in touch with someone that you're cultivating. All leads may not be ready for an appointment. So your goal is to gain mind share and continue to stay in close emotional proximity so that when they're ready, they're going to think of you and not, say, hey, I don't remember this person who I talked to 3 months ago, but never heard from them again. So you want to keep in touch so that they see your name, on their phone or in their email. Okay. So we're on to that next little shape here, connection best practices. So the second step is connect. Connecting is about layering the foundation for a working relationship. What is really important during the step is to listen, ask good questions, offer solutions, keep the focus of the conversation on them. The goal of communication, in addition to building the relationship, is determine their urgency. What is their timeline? Do they literally need to move next week? Are they looking towards spring? You'll hear that from a lot of people. Oh, I'm waiting for spring market, or I really can't move until the fall because of whatever. This will help you prioritize the lead and help you know what sort of touch campaign that you can use as your follow-up plan. Again, urgency versus I'm looking a year from now, those are going to be two different things. So keep these best practices in mind as you communicate and connect. embed your value proposition into the conversation to position yourself as the local expert. So you don't want to spend 20 minutes boasting about how you're a real estate agent, but what are you going to be doing to adding value to help them get to whatever goal that they're looking to meet? Build and have confidence through knowing what you are going to say. Role play, practice conversations, know the market data. Really important. Grab an agent. There's many people at this brokerage, me included. If you ever wanted to call me and practice scripting or do some sort of, I'm the seller, you're the agent, and let's talk and we can do different scenarios, that's super helpful. Knowing the market data. I have been to many a mastermind where top agents at this company, if you're an expert, even on one town, I mean, if you can do more, that's great. But if you're able to spit out data, true data, don't make it up. And you say, hey, in the last 30 days, 27 homes have closed in Rochester, 27 single family homes have closed in Rochester under 500,000. When you say something like that, people will go, oh, wow, they know what they're talking about. So maybe it's the town that you live in, maybe it's the area that you're super focused in or you want to do a lot of business in. Maybe it's Stratford County, Rockingham County. Go on to Nearin and Prime MLS every single day, even if it's for 10 minutes. And you should be clicking through and looking at what's newly active on market, what has closed, what's pending. I highly recommend doing that. And it'll get you into the groove of knowing about what's on market, because there's nothing worse than if you're talking to somebody and we can't know everything, right? It's just not possible. But how many times have I had someone say, oh yeah, you know, that house over on Main Street in Somersworth? And I'm like, yeah, oh yeah, but I haven't seen it yet, and maybe it's the middle of the day and I've been driving around. But my point being is be the expert of your area. That's really powerful to do. And then we have use backward design when thinking about your communication. Think about the intended outcome before starting the conversation. So, what is your end goal? You don't have to necessarily set the appointment right then or there. Maybe, it's connecting with the person enough to make them feel comfortable. And, you're getting that first step of their email address and phone number. So that's always a good thing. All right. 6 connection questions. These are really important. So who are they? What do they want or need to do? Where do they want or need to do it? Why do they want or need to do it? When do they want or need to do it? And how do they plan to do it? So in your participant guide, there's a list of questions categorized by buyer and seller that you can customize and use in your business. Highly recommend, taking a look at those. When you're going through the connection process and cultivating those relationships, you're going to learn more about that person and specifically what they're looking to do. And again, the more you do this with more people, the easier it will get. So it's never a bad thing. You want to be documenting these conversations and their outcomes in your database immediately. So hopefully both of you are learning the ropes. I don't know if you've done orientation just yet, but Command is our CRM program that we use at KW Coastal. You can be tracking everything in Command. We have our Gmail. Again, I mentioned Streak. So that's another way you can download that as a plugin, and you can be, every conversation you have, you can be logging those in as notes per contact that you have if you have email contacts. It's just good practice too, because then you can remember, if you're talking to a lot of people, then you can remember, oh, I spoke with this person on this day and she mentioned she's looking to, buy a house in Portsmouth, whatever. And then maybe put in your lead follow-up plan in your notes. So keeping a strong, well-documented record of communication will help you know how to move the relationship forward, how to come from contribution in the future, and assess how to prioritize the lead. What is the priority of this, right? Seller, buyer, they have, maybe they have children and they can't wait. They need to do something after the school year, all those things. So there's a lot of moving parts. Do you guys have any questions before we move on to the next slide? Anything that we've spoken about or questions for me?
I'm good so far.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so connection questions. I'm not going to read all these through, but I will tell you. So we've got it broken down by buyers and sellers. Um, oops, let me go back a second. So starting with the buyers, and I'm going to go, you know, do a little segue and talk about my business for a little bit and what has been working. So, sample questions for buyers here. When you meet somebody for the first time, if you're just capturing their information, you're not going to want to ask them all these right off the bat because that might scare them. But these are really, really good questions. So you could certainly probe a little bit. And then what I think would be always a good idea is if I'm meeting a buyer out in the wild or I'm getting a lead or whatever, um, I'm saying to them, hey, and this is the setting the appointment part. I would love to speak with you further about your home buying, goals. And it doesn't even have to be said like that. I'd love to talk to you more about um, buying a house. And do you have time, or you can say, what days and times work for you for a phone call? And I'd love to go a little bit more in depth on asking you what you're looking for. So, and getting back to one of the last slides there, when you're having these conversations, typically people love to talk. So when the floodgates open, they're going to open and you're listening, right? You're listening, you're taking notes mentally, or I'm always have my notepad with me and I'm scribbling things down. But when I'm doing what's called a buyer consultation, these connection questions for buyers, these are great because you're going to learn a lot more about what they're looking for, and then you can kind of shift as needed. And I think too, and sometimes people don't know. Sometimes people are like, wow, I really haven't thought about it. Depends on the type of personality you're dealing with. And then other times people know exactly this is what I want. I need an acre of land. It's got to be 3 bedrooms, minimum of 2 bathrooms. House has to have a fireplace. Um, Whatever. We're renting right now. They'll have all the answers for you. Other people maybe haven't thought of them as much, but this will give you a really good sense of what you're working with, and you can go from there. Sample questions for sellers. Yeah, how did you hear about my services? Address of your home. So this is really good. So comparative market analysis, CMA, we use that term to talk about, we're going to put together a presentation for a potential seller client. Right now, they're a customer on their home and maybe what we feel that it could sell for, or what the public might think it's worth, right? So we're going to pull data from different places and use comparables. So this is a really important tool. And I will tell you, sometimes they don't want to hear what you have to say because maybe that number is lower than, what they feel their home is worth. The seller's going to sell for what they feel their home is worth. We are here to educate them on the market and give our professional opinion on, hey, here's where I think you could land, right? So all these questions, though, are going to give you a better idea of the realisticness of where people are at, and kind of what you're dealing with. So do you guys have any questions on these more in-depth questions?
So would you suggest, like, let's say you're having a meeting with a buyer, you're doing the buyer consultation meeting, actually having this list of questions, like maybe giving them
Absolutely.
like a questionnaire to answer?
You just hit the nail on the head. So what I used to do was I called it like my pre-homework. I have a
Mm.
Google survey, and I would literally send um, not necessarily these questions exactly, but I had my own template for it. And I would say, hey, it would be really helpful if you wouldn't mind filling out a few things for me before we chat. That would be great. And then obviously I got the results back to me. And I have to tell you, every single time I did it, people actually, they weren't like, oh, this is such a drag, or at least they didn't tell me that, but they were like, oh, okay, that's great. So then now, before we're even having the conversation, I kind of know, I have a general idea of what they're looking for. But when we're talking, we're going to go through each one and I'm going to get a little bit more in depth, right? So I have an idea and I can be more prepped if they're telling me, you know, in that survey, before we even fully talk, Dover, 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 I love Dover, that's where we want to be. Maybe I'm going and I'm saying, hey, well, same thing, the market data. I'm showing them that I'm comfortable and I know the market, right? So it's that little bit of pre-homework. The survey thing, our questionnaire, is a great idea. We have shifted to what we call a buyer's guide. So it's not super lengthy, but we have a PDF that we've put together with our assistant. And it does touch upon some of these questions, but it's more, we're kind of covering every part of the process of the timeline, how things work, working with a lender, how does the home buying process work? Because we find that a lot of this is really for more first time home buyers. A lot of first time home buyers do not realize, even the pre-approval process. It's like, oh, like, where do I even get started with that? Which, this is a question here, I think, right? Are you pre-approved with a lender? So we have, all that information in one spot, and we give that to them beforehand and say, write down any questions you have, and then we kind of talk about it. But I love the idea of a survey, and it's super easy to do, and you can have all the information collected back to you in one place.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to look at it. Okay, let's go on to, okay, so we're back to our shape guide here. So cultivate. Cultivation is the step in the model where agents find themselves struggling. So you can't know or predict when they will come to a decision, meaning a buyer or seller lead. But if you're reconnecting with them in a systematic way, you'll have a great chance of being there when they do. That's when you'll be able to close for an appointment. So agents often struggle during cultivation because they don't have the right systems in place to continue to follow up with that lead. We kind of talked about that a little bit before. So they let the lead slip, and then they get disappointed when they learn that the lead transacted with a different agent. You shouldn't let the lead slide to someone else, especially when you have invested a lot. So don't let it go to waste. I will tell you, this happens all the time in real estate. It definitely has happened to me before, thankfully not that much. But there's nothing worse than seeing or hearing that maybe somebody that you've spoken with, you see the post on Facebook and they've closed a house with someone else. Yeah, it's an awful feeling. And you want to go to them and say, like, oh my gosh, what happened? But then you kind of have to take a step back and say, well, don't put the blame fully on yourself. There's sometimes are other factors, of course, but what maybe did you not do that led them to go in a different direction, right? So this, to me, cultivation, so that's the keeping in touch, right? You've captured the lead, you've connected with them, but how are you getting on track to make sure that I'm calling it touching base, but drip campaign, something to show them that you're still there, you're still in their corner. Do you need to talk to people every 24 hours? No, definitely not. I don't recommend that. You have to toe the line between still having them see your name, but also not being overbearing, right? And every client or customer, maybe at that point, is a little bit different. I have some people that want me to constantly check in with them. That's fine. And I know that. And actually, I will ask people, what is your preferred method of communication? And how do you prefer to be contacted? Because I'm happy to keep in touch with you weekly, or, we can talk every 2 days. What I will gladly call you once a week. And most people are like, no, you don't need to do that. A lot of texting in this business, lot of texting. And again, it's a little bit less pressure. You can type that message out. It's instant. You don't have that phone call, the voice inflection on the phone. You can have a shorter, quicker conversation. So I will often find myself too, maybe it's just a text message. Maybe I called them last week, but I'm texting this week saying, hey, it was really nice chatting with you last week. Thought of you, saw this house. Hope all is well. I'm here if you need anything. Something along those lines. Not every situation is going to be the same. So you have to tweak it depending on the scenario. There's no like specific formula for every single person.
Question,
Yes.
guys. Something that just popped in my head because you said voice inflection. Have you
Mhm.
guys thought about doing like the voice recordings via text message? Is that weird? Is that a weird thing to do?
You know, I don't think it's a weird thing to do. There's an agent that does that, and he like he not to me obviously, but I've heard and I've heard some of his messages to other people, and he's given examples of it. His leads seem to love it because it adds a little bit of a personalized touch, whereas there's nothing wrong with text message, but it's a little cut and dry, right? An email or a text, whereas a phone call, you're going back and forth. You have to be prepared. You're being put on the spot potentially. But a voice memo is something really different. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. He was doing birthdays, holidays. I don't know. I'm not sure if he was getting into a like, hey, it's me, I saw this house and I thought of you, but he was keeping in touch with people, um, basically, personal milestones, right? Again, birthdays, holidays, and he very, remembered for that. So I think that's great.
Okay.
You could set
Deanna, what do you
yourself
think?
apart.
I mean, if it works for you, it works for you. At that point, though, I would probably want to do a phone call or meet them in person.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Sometimes calling on the phone, I go back and forth because I actually prefer it because it's just easier. The problem, which is not a problem, but like yesterday, I was on the phone a lot, pretty much all day, back to back. But I will make calls, and of course, someone doesn't pick up, which is normal because they might be on a call. So you're doing a lot of phone tag. So, and then depending on what I have going on, sometimes I need to be in front of my computer to see, to refer to something. I do a lot of phone calls while I'm driving. Great spot to make calls. Your car is like your office, it's your mobile office. So, um, but I do like a text message, emails. Some advice I will give if you are conversing with, um, your clients and you're having these conversations on the phone, it's never a bad thing to then send an email, following up and saying, hey, it was really great chatting with you. I just wanted to follow up with an email to, summarize what we chatted about. And you can give a quick summary. So you got the phone call and then you have it in writing. Because in this business, not that there's, you know, it's not a bad thing, but I often find that those phone calls, depending on the situation, sometimes a summarized recap in an email is really good because it's not like you can return back to the phone call and replay it, right? So I think that's also another professional way to handle things. So I have a buyer consultation, I'm going through some of those questions on the last slide. Buyer consultation is done. I've talked to these people for maybe an hour and a half. I like to get super in depth. I talk about paperwork, what it means to work with me as an agent. And then afterwards, I'm sending an email and I do have a template for it, but I'll make it a little bit personalized and I'll say, hey, John and Jane, thank you so much. It was great speaking with you this evening. As a reminder, here's some of the things we spoke about, and I'm looking forward to keeping in touch. I'll be setting you up on a listing cart as promised. So it's kind of just that little bit of follow up. It's another way to kind of show people that you mean business and you're professional. So that seems to work for me. So we do that always, always.
I think oh, sorry. Um, that was my cat. Um, I think one of the brokers mentioned that they would prefer us to do phone calls over text messages.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not surprised by that. I think, I don't know, it's 2025, texting, everybody's on their phones. We know this. I mean, I will probably send more text messages than I do emails. But again, these are short, right? I'll send more text messages to other agents, believe it or not, than I will to maybe a buyer or seller, client or customer. Phone call trumps all. I think that's like, I agree with you. I think having a phone conversation is a really good personal connection and it's very professional. Um, So I would agree with that. I think again, text message is kind of, I'm not going to have a buyer consult text message, right? So it's got to be a Zoom call or a phone call, or even better, meeting in person. So yes, that
I
definitely makes sense.
I think part of the reason too that they prefer the phone calls is because like you're less likely to get in trouble for something you say.
Absolutely. I would agree with that too. The liability factor. Um, yeah. And again, there's ways like in this business, how do I how do I say this? If you're promising something to someone, like you shouldn't be doing that. I'm trying to think of a good example. It's like you're having a conversation with a client, you submitted an offer for them. It's like, yep, you're gonna get it, right? Well, no, we shouldn't be saying things like that because you truly don't know. I have had situations where I've had maybe another agent say, yep, your offer is the one we're going for, right? But I don't have a signed contract back yet. So we're having this conversation on the phone and they're saying, yep, we're going to sign your offer. Excellent. I have learned my lesson rather than going to my client and saying, oh my gosh, I just talked to the agent, when they said they're going to sign your offer. That contract is not executed until you have an actual signed copy back. So then when you get the next call, an hour later saying, oh, actually, sorry, we got another offer in and it was better. So we're actually going to sign that offer. And I'm going, oh my gosh, now I have to go back to my buyers, and tell them that never mind. Right. So, anyway, we kind of digressed a little bit on there. But phone calls, yeah, definitely superior to everything else. But I think we're in the day and age of, a quick text message has become ultra popular. I text with most agents. They prefer the quick communication for whatever reason. So, and I always say too, if you can't get me on the phone, feel free, like in my voicemail, I think it says, feel free to text me. Emails, I'm not checking as often. I get the notifications, they flash across my screen, but I'm not necessarily always stopping to read them. So text is going to be quicker. Let's click to the next slide here. Okay, closing. So when you are setting the appointment, what are the important elements to schedule? So it's saying allow for participants to discuss in small groups. We're not going to do that. We're not in person. So first off, you're not just looking for a yes as a response to asking the appointment. So if you're asking someone, hey, would you like to, would you like to meet up? Would you like to discuss your home search further? So as soon as you get the yes, you should immediately schedule the appointment. So the example here is if I ask you, Ryan, hey, Ryan, it sounds like you're looking for this house in Dover. You're ready to get your home search started. Would you like to talk further about that? And you say, yes. Great. Your job's not done. Now you have to do that next step, which is actually setting the appointment. You are putting together a date and a time, and a location. So one thing to keep in mind, the location, we will talk about this more in the transaction section when we cover buyer and seller consultations. We kind of talked a little bit about that. We do a lot of phone calls, or we might do a Zoom call. That during COVID, obviously that was the way everybody was doing it. We will sometimes do buyer consults in person. And two, if you haven't taken advantage yet, I know you guys are still finding your footing a little bit. The Portsmouth office, the Dover office, like there are spaces that you can meet potential clients in person. You can schedule a time at the conference room. It's ultra professional. So I think that looks, really good. And you can come with all your material and preparedness. For a seller consultation, ideally, you want to set that appointment and say, great, I'd love to get my eyes on your house so I can make a better determination of value. What days and times work for you? So we find that if you start asking, oh, does Friday at 3 work? Don't give them options. You're asking them what days and times work for you, and then you can work around your schedule. Give them options. I heard someone recently say that they've had success saying what times don't work for you, which I find interesting. I think I still prefer saying what are some days and times frames that work for you? Because they can say, oh, well, I'm on break this time, whatever. Oftentimes you're doing calls that are after 5 o'clock because you have people that maybe work like a 9 to 5 regular work hours. So be prepared. Some of these conversations might happen, at nighttime after work hours, which is fine because real estate is a job where you are plugged in a lot. But with asking for the appointment, you're not just going to say, okay, great. Yeah, let's meet. We'll decide later on. No, you want to set that appointment. That is the ultimate goal. Get that in the calendar and say, again, I will follow up with an email for you with a little bit more information. Thank you for having this conversation with me today. If you're doing a Zoom call, I'll send you the Zoom link. And then also too, what I would be doing, and we have run into this before, if you have, this is more with a seller consultation, but regardless, you have an appointment set with someone, you should ideally the day before be checking in with them and saying, hi, it's Kirstin. I'm just checking in. I'm making sure that we're still on for tomorrow at 3 p.m. I've had people cancel last minute. This is just one more touch before you get to that appointment. So don't, want to make sure that everybody's on the same page. How many times have we had people that are like, oh my gosh, I completely forgot. Yes, we're good. Or, oh, can we actually do 1 p.m.? Whatever it is, make sure that you're checking in right before at least one more time.
Question. The
Yes.
Portsmouth and Dover conference rooms for a buyer consultation or buyer appointment,
Mhm.
is there an easy way to book those? Is there can you do it through the hub?
Yep.
You
I
can.
will show you literally right now. Hold on.
Thank you.
Let's see. Yeah, so you're gonna do, oops. You know what, Ryan, I'll show you at the very end.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Chris.
Yeah, of course. It's super easy and you can literally do it right online. You're gonna put your information in, and then you're on the list. So I'll show you when we finish here, I'll pop it up on my screen. Okay, so it's saying tell participants to turn to the KW belief system in their participant guide. I'm just going to read this quote to you guys. In the end, if they can meet and have a good enough reason to meet, they will meet. And if they don't, they won't. And that's okay. You don't really care what their answer ultimately is because you're not getting people to do anything that they don't want to do. And that's really important. You're just going to ask and respond until they agree that meeting with you makes sense or it doesn't. Either way, you both win. So I think this to me makes sense. You're not getting people to do anything that they don't want to do, right? You're going to ask and respond until they agree that the meeting with you makes sense. So this is not, hey, I'm checking in with you every 24 hours. Meet with me, meet with me, meet with me. You want to show your value. You've had that initial conversation. It's okay if somebody maybe is not ready tomorrow to buy a house or sell their house. That's okay. How are you getting people to stay in contact with you and then setting that appointment, right? And it's not being pushy or a car salesman. You don't have to do that. We oftentimes will have the conversation with potential clients like, hey, we understand you don't want to sell until next year. It's never a bad idea to start getting prepped now. We would really love to have that conversation with you of how we work and what our process is like. This way, when you are ready, you know how things will go. And oftentimes people are interviewing multiple agents. That's okay. That's fine. You're not going to win them all either. That's fine. But you're allowing yourself an opportunity to show others how you work. And it's not they're closing the door on your face and, no is no. I've never had a situation where someone has yelled at me or said like, hey, buzz off. I don't want to talk to you anymore. You see more often of people who maybe won't respond, right? You're sending check-ins, you're calling, they're not answering, they're not calling you back. So you're going to ask and respond until they agree that meeting with you makes sense. You don't have to call them every day. There have been, like I said in the beginning, people that haven't answered me. And then now when they're fully ready, hey, I've been seeing your emails. I've been seeing your text messages. They always give an excuse. Sorry, I've been busy. That's fine. Do not give up is the point of this slide. Okay. Improve your conversion rate. So don't neglect any part of your database, reconnect with each person. And when you do, also ask for referrals. That's really important. Something that I did not really do when I first started real estate. So conversion activities are not just for leads, they're for your sphere of influence. Deanna, it sounds like you were talking a little bit earlier that you're having a lot of conversations with people you know, which is great. Come from care, curiosity, and contribution, and get back in relationship with past clients. Think about it. If you help a buyer tomorrow, they buy a house, you close on a house with a buyer, in 3 years from now, they might be ready to sell. Maybe in a year, they have to move somewhere. That is not you just closing the chapter and saying, well, that was great, thanks. You know, good, so glad that we got this house for you. Keep in touch with your past clients. Super important. That's another one. There's nothing worse than when you see the address on the MLS and you go, oh gosh, I sold that house 3 years ago and the buyers are now selling with someone else. It happens all the time. There's no excuse to not keep in touch. Home anniversaries, right? You know, whenever their closing date was, sending a little message or calling, hey, it's me. It's been a year. Can you believe it's been a year? You guys still loving the house? Is there anything I can help you with? You know, sending them a list of vendors or people in the area. You know, I saw this restaurant and thought of you. Whatever it is, you know, coming from care, curiosity, and contribution, right? Keep in touch with people. And probably, I would have to imagine with both of you, and then it looks like my husband is also on the call this morning. Now all of a sudden, but you know, the people that you work with, you're probably it's very normal to, you know, to become close with people, right? I have met many friends that were clients first and then friends. So it's a great way to expand your sphere. Okay. Now we're back to this again. So every lead has the potential to turn into a business. And as you've already heard, there are no bad leads. So with the lead conversion model, you have learned capture the appropriate information so you can connect with them, connect to assess their needs and establish a relationship, cultivate the relationship. Not all people will convert directly. So what are you doing to stay in touch? And then you're going to close by asking for the appointment. You are in control of the ask. You are in control of the ask, no one else. Do not be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to ask. And if they say no, which you have a 50-50 shot, they say, no, not at this time. No problem. Would it be okay if I'm keeping in touch with you? Right? And I really doubt that people are going to say, no, it's not okay that you keep in touch with me. I've never had that happen. They'll say, sure. Okay, great. I'll be keeping in touch. Okay. Okay, so accessing help and command. If you guys have not had a chance to kind of go through command and some of the tabs that are and options that are available, there's KW University. So there's a bunch of videos and resources that you can use. There's support that you can chat with. Demonstrate how to access resources. Okay. I'm going to do that at the end. I'll pull up the Market Center and show you guys some of those things. Okay. Success system. Okay, so it says for the next 2 hours, we're not doing anything for the next 2 hours. Working on our success system. So this is really cool though. If you guys have time, you know, whether it's this weekend or maybe next week, some ideas, role playing conversations with a partner. It says top agents practice every day, which I believe that. Preparing a call list for the day. This is another system that top agents use to save them time. So they have their list, they start at the top, you just go, you call people without hesitation. 45 minutes of real play. This is role play in the real world, making contact and having conversations with as many people as possible. maybe you're going to the coffee shop, whatever, you're out and about, you're at a restaurant, you're talking to your waitress, whatever. 30 minutes of updating your database with information gathered from your conversations. We talked about this earlier. Just having a little note log of what those conversations were and what you were talking about. All of those activities are daily habits of success. So I would say if you can time block in your calendar, maybe you start small, maybe it's just an hour a day, maybe it's 30 minutes, but getting in that routine is always a good thing. And that will definitely help. Okay, so the success systems, yeah, this is the daily success system tracker, 10 conversations with your sphere, 10 contacts added to your database, 10 handwritten notes expressing gratitude. Handwritten notes are actually a really great way to connect with people. And that's another buyer or seller consultation follow-up. Probably would be better with a seller after you have that consultation. And again, maybe they're not a signed client yet. That's okay. It's completely okay. They can be a customer and you're sending them, their address because you went to the house. Send them a little handwritten note. Thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to speak with you about your beautiful home. I would love to keep in touch on the market in the area, whatever. That goes a long way. Okay, and then this is really important. Have you guys, Ryan and Deanna, have you done orientation yet, or is that coming up soon?
I have done it.
I have also done it.
Okay, so I'm sure they talked about the TCPA. Did they?
They did.
Okay. All right. So I'm not going to go through this other than the fact that we will get emails from our office often, at least once a month. Just have to be really careful about this. I do not do cold calling. The calls that I'm making are for contact, like phone numbers and this is obviously for phone calls, phone numbers that I've already received or have submitted information to me. So, but this is really important and we do not want to get in trouble with that. So just be careful. And if you ever have questions, you can ask one of the brokers or someone at the office if you have more clarification questions on this.
I actually do kind of have a question. I don't know if
Yeah.
any of you guys have heard about this. And Deanna, I know we were talking about this last night at the awards, but I was just looking at it and it looks like there was going to be some rules changes to the TCPA, but those might have been struck down / delayed. I don't know if Kirstin, if you've heard anything about that.
I haven't. I wonder, Pat, are you on?
Yes, I am.
Have you
No,
heard-
I've not heard of any changes. At least nothing that I'm aware of. Did they say if it was law or if it was company policy or?
It was going to be a law change, but I believe a district court possibly delayed it the day before it's
Okay.
supposed to go effective. So I'll reach out to the brokers.
Interesting. Yeah, Ryan, I have not heard, but we'll have to look into that. There's been quite a few. We've been trying to really purposefully, and this is more Pat's speed, but this is not relating to the TCPA, but law changes in real estate in New Hampshire. We've been trying to get the word out to clients. There's been quite a few, right, Pat?
Yeah. Sorry, what was that?
Law changes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, especially over the past year, the amount of law changes. There's different sources that you can sign up for that will tell you about the 2025 law changes or anything like that. And those are always really good conversation starters with any potential leads too. That idea was talked about during a mastermind with Adam Dow, where he said his favorite time is whenever a new law comes out because he gets to go reach out to people and tell them like,
Yeah.
hey, there's this new law that might affect you. And that's a conversation starter, and you can start to discuss that and see how it impacts their business and your business.
Yeah.
What are some of those sources, Pat, where you can kind of get that news?
So I am getting it through, so I'm a commercial agent, and so their realtor association is sending it out to me. I haven't seen any other solid sources, but if I come across one, I'll definitely let you know.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Ryan, that might be actually though a good question because so Pat, you're getting it from the NH Cyborg emails.
Yes.
Good
Yeah.
thing I'm reading those. Just kidding. I am also commercially licensed in New Hampshire. But yeah, and there might be, I don't, here's the thing. We're getting a lot of information constantly, right? So we get the morning news from KW with all of our, what's happening for the day. Do you guys, Ryan and Deanna, are you part of Stratford County Board or Seacoast Board of Realtors?
I'm in Stratford.
Stratford, okay.
I'm pretty active in the Seacoast board.
Okay. All right. So I don't know as much about Seacoast because we are on the I'm actually on the board of directors for Stratford. So if you have to scroll down though, right? So there Lydia, who does all of the emails for the Stratford board, she will include law changes. And Jason Westcott can tell you, he's probably going to be the go-to. He loves that kind of stuff. So maybe Ryan, I might reach out to him and just say, hey, what's the best source to get that from? We have been, obviously, as Pat said, the Cyborg emails, that's where we've been, or I should say Pat has been reading all those.
Even the quick start too in the morning,
Oh yeah.
I could probably be more diligent about watching that every morning, but I know Jason Westcott will bring them up and be like, hey,
Yeah.
this is what's coming up, down the pike. And also, ask the broker in contract classes.
Yeah.
Contracts are 100% law. That's what they talk about. So anything that's, going to be changing regarding contracts, especially over the past year with the NAL lawsuit, right? A lot of our contracts have changed. So um, ask the broker and contract classes are going to be two really good resources that KW has that is going to talk about laws and things that are changing.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Yeah, and that's the thing too with Keller Williams. There's so many resources, and I'm sure you guys you realize this, as you've joined this brokerage, but it's knowing where to look and obviously who to ask. But the information is available. It's not hidden, right? So yeah, as you get deeper into this industry and business, we find that knowledge is power. And Pat's right. Having that information, if someone says, well, hey, what about septic systems? It's like there's a whole slew of new information for waterfront properties and septic systems and what the rules and the laws are now in 2025. I can guarantee you there's a lot of people that probably maybe who haven't done waterfront, business that are not aware of those, which is okay. We can learn about it, but knowing that ahead of time is really, really important. So
It lends a lot of credibility to you as an agent, right? Because it becomes, you're no longer just a person that just got their license if you're a new agent. You're a person that's a professional in the industry and you can speak to the legalities and navigating this process. And if you're able to, speak with intelligence about, up to date, current events and stuff and industry trends and new laws and where interest rates are and where they're projected to go, that lends a lot of credibility to you being as a professional real estate agent.
Yeah,
I
that
would
really
agree.
resonates with me. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's 100% something that you guys both can do. Cool. All right, Pat. Good job. Thanks for hijacking my class.
Anytime.
Just kidding.
Uh,
Stay on the line, Pat,
another, another question, sorry, before we move
No,
on.
that's okay.
Someone mentioned quick start. What exactly is that? They
Pat?
don't have like a lot of descriptions for a lot of the things that are on the calendar.
There's
Yeah.
a lot of things going on, and
Yeah.
that's been kind of being recorded, so I'll do my best to be kind. But like that's one of my gripes with Keller Williams. There's a lot of information, but there's a lot of information. So if you go to the private Keller Williams Coastal and Lakes and Mountains Facebook group, they post a video in there every morning.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's running on Facebook, but also too, it's on Ryan, the morning news. So that email that we get, I don't know what time it comes out, maybe at 8 a.m.
7:15.
Oh, okay. Even better. That's when my notifications go out on, they turn on at 8. But I'm going to show you guys to the KWCLM hub before we get off, which hopefully also will be helpful. And there's a lot of information in that spot. So I'll show you that too in a second. Okay, so I engage every conversation in the spirit of contribution and people are happy to be in a relationship with me. Yep, we're talking again about leads and engaging in conversation. I feel like you guys have a good handle this morning after what we've talked about. You know what you need to be doing. Okay. And then celebrating successes. It says in the last 15 minutes, ask participants to share results from their success systems. You know, as you guys are starting out, you're going to be having these conversations more and more. I wish we could do a follow-up in like a month and we could talk again and you could talk about your success systems. I would say too, as newer agents, just a recommendation, and Pat and I have talked about this all the time, and we're not new agents, but we still find a lot of power in doing this. Sign up for some open houses, ask other agents if they're willing to have you cover for them. Okay, we're still screen sharing. Okay. Yeah, covering an open house for someone, great way to get out and about, talk to people, have those conversations. You might get an unrepped buyer, another great lead source. I think for a newer agent, it's a great thing to do. Shadowing an agent, same thing. Hey, maybe someone's hosting and say, hey, can I come along and kind of see how you operate? I'm sure you probably went through some of this at orientation, but don't be afraid to ask people questions and come along for the ride, right? How else are you going to learn unless you're doing some of those things? I didn't know until I started going on listing appointments. I was deathly afraid. I could barely speak. I was so nervous. So all those things will make you a better agent as you move, forward in this business. So I'm excited to see, where you guys land and how things go, and feel free. You can always reach out to Pat or I anytime.
Thank you.
Of
I really
course.
appreciate that.
All right. So preparing for next session. I'm not sure when that is, if it's next week or what, but strengthening relationships. Hopefully you guys will be on that call. Do not forget to, like Tim said, you're going to get double credit today, but let me show you. Hold on a second. Can you guys see that I just kind of X'd out of my screen a little bit?
Yep.
Okay.
We're seeing your Google Chrome.
Okay.
Also,
So,
if you guys didn't notice in the chat here, I put a link to the new laws. It's actually through New Hampshire's Realtor Association. So that'd be a good resource. I don't know if there's some sort of subscription you can sign up for, but
okay. And okay, perfect. So if you look on your screen, and I just also put in the chat, KWCLM Hub, this is where, you've got literally everything. And if you scroll down, login shortcuts, and then need it now, video library, resources and documents. If you need a logo, you need our KWCLM logo, all of this stuff, script library, how to get paid. This is a really good website. I would personally save it up here, on your toolbar or taskbar, whatever the heck it's called. But let's see, today Friday. Yeah. So if you want to, Ryan and Deanna, in the morning, you could certainly go onto Facebook, or for the quick start, you could just literally be clicking right here every morning, 8:22 to 8:30. So you could have this up on your computer and you don't have to watch it through Facebook. And it's usually Tim. Sometimes it's Jason Westcott. And then all of the other classes and things that are happening are on here. And I think where's Ignite? Yep. This is me right here. So there's that. And then Ryan, I'm going to show you quickly how to schedule a conference room time. So you're going to go to the KW intranet. Do you know how to get there?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So a couple of steps here. Won't take you long. So if you scroll down to quick links, and then you're going to do my KW MC 463 intranet. And now this is bringing us to our market center specifically. So this is going to be a great tool. And then you're going to go up here to market center. And this is where you can schedule those conference room times and sign up for uptime as well. So you're going to go over to resources, and it's going to give you an entire list of, you have all the conference rooms here. So if you wanted to do, let's say Dover, for example, you could click, there's one conference room in Dover. It's plenty big, it's at least 8 spots. So you can see some people have already signed up. And all you're going to do is just, I could sign up for Saturday. You're going to click in, confirm your reservation, whatever time works for you. And that is your allotted time. For Portsmouth, I think, yeah, okay, confirmed. Yeah, Wolfboro, there's spots in the York office in Maine. Meredith has the conference room. Hanover, which is obviously pretty far from here. So Portsmouth is the only office where you will have to call the front desk and all you can say is, hey, do you have availability? I'm doing a buyer consult Friday at 3 p.m. And whoever is manning the phones will put you on the schedule and you should get an email confirmation. So otherwise you can just go right on here.
Wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, guys, now that I've gone completely off the rails and done and done some other KW websites other than the Ignite training, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and let you go this morning. But it was very nice to see you both. And like I said, if you ever, feel free to reach out to Pat or I, or if you're, we're in Dover quite a bit. If you ever wanted to, touch base or had a question, you can always reach out to us.
Thank you
Okay,
so
will do.
much.
You're welcome. All right, guys, have a good day.
You
Happy
too.
Friday.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.